I am Tara Smith. I'm a professor of epidemiology
I'm Dr. Christopher Wolverton, professor of epidemiology
in the Kent State University College of Public Health.
Hold up.
What is COVID-19?
COVID-19 is the disease that is caused by the novel coronavirus.
What are the symptoms?
The primary symptoms are cough, shortness of breath, and fever,
Gastrointestinal symptoms including nausea and vomiting and diarrhea.
and the sudden loss and sensation of taste or smell.
How does it spread?
So COVID-19 is primarily spread person to person. It can spread just by talking to another person. It can spread by coughing and sneezing. So then the other person can pick up the virus from another person's respiratory secretions.
Why is COVID-19 dangerous?
COVID-19 is dangerous because it does have a fatality rate of somewhere around 1% to 2%. It can be fatal for individuals, especially those that have risk factors such as increased age, obesity, or other respiratory issues. Even in people that seem to clear the virus, that are infected and then seem to get better, sometimes they can have lingering symptoms for potentially weeks or months. And we don't know really what is the extent of those long-term complications.
Why are some activities riskier than others?
So any activity where you are breathing more heavily or exhaling more rapidly can cause more virus to be expelled. So singing, coughing, talking loudly or yelling, or exhaling while you're exercising, like while you're running, can potentially spread more viral particles and spread them a farther distance than just regular talking or breathing.
Where did COVID-19 come from?
It came apparently out of nowhere. We believe that it was originally a virus of bats, and that slowly, by interaction with humans, the virus mutated to where it became infectious for humans.
Why is this a human virus?
Because it transmits efficiently human to human. So even if it came from a bat or some other animal originally, now it is completely unnecessary to have that reservoir that we call it. So it moves from human to humans and does not need any animal any further.
Isn't the virus mutating? What does that mean for immunity?
Interestingly enough, this virus, SARS-CoV-2, is in fact mutating like most RNA viruses. As we continue to progress towards vaccine development, the key piece of the virus, the receptor counterpart, is what the most vaccine developers would target so that we could prevent viruses from attaching to human cells. That piece of the virus has been fairly stable since the beginning when the virus was first identified in China.
What do we mean by isolation versus quarantine?
So when we talk about isolation versus quarantine, the important criteria here is to remember that if you're asked to isolate, it means that you are positive for the COVID-19 disease, either by having tested positive for the virus or being diagnosed by a physician because you have clinical symptoms indicating that you have the COVID-19 disease. That's isolation. If you came in contact with someone who is diagnosed positive with COVID-19 disease, we would want to put you in quarantine to protect you from yourself so that if you got the disease symptoms, you could be monitored. But just as importantly, to protect others who would come in contact with you so they won't catch the virus.
Who determines if isolation or quarantine are required, and by what authority is it enforced?
So the authority for isolation and quarantine resides with the local health department. At Kent State, we have created isolation and quarantine facilities on campus so that if a student is diagnosed or tests positive for COVID-19, they can go into isolation on campus. And if they are a contact of someone who has been diagnosed or tested positive, they can go into quarantine.
What criteria are used to determine the end of isolation or quarantine?
So when we isolate a person who has been exposed and is exhibiting symptoms or even asymptomatically has tested positive, we put them into isolation for 10 days. And at the end of the 10 days, if you still have no symptoms or if you've recovered from all of your symptoms, including the last 24 hours being without fever, then you are released from isolation and can go back to the general population. And so we put people who have been exposed into quarantine. Quarantine is 14 days. At the end of the 14 days, if you have no symptoms, if you have no ill feelings, then you are released from quarantine and returned back into the general population.
How does one plan ahead in case isolation or quarantine on campus are required?
So packing a bag, a backpack, or a large purse with a few extra things that would normally be your comforts. Your favorite books to read, a notebook and pencil, a couple of other items, your personal hygiene items, so that if you are asked to isolate or quarantine, it's very easy for you to just grab that and then go to the space that has been reserved for isolation and quarantine.